Welcome to another episode on the Law Report. In this episode we are going to discuss the Global Irregular Migration and Trafficking in Persons Sanctions, Overseas Territories, Order 2025, which was passed by the UK to regulate its overseas territories and came into effect on October 16, 2025. The United Kingdom has introduced new and tough sanctions focusing on bad actors involved in human smuggling and trafficking to its overseas territories and enforcing financial and immigration restrictions in its overseas territories, including the Turks and Caicos Islands. The new law came into force on October 16, 2025, through an order in Council which reads, His Majesty, in exercise of the powers conferred by Section 63, 3, c, and 4, of the Sanctions and Anti-Money Laundering Act 2018, is pleased, by and with the advice of his Privy Council, to make the following order. 1. This order may be cited as the Global Irregular Migration and Trafficking in Persons Sanctions, Overseas Territories, Order 2025 and comes into force on October 16, 2025. 2. This order extends to each British overseas territory listed in Schedule 1. The territories listed in Schedule 1: Anguilla, Cayman Islands, Montserrat, Turks and Caicos Islands and British Virgin Islands, Pitcairn, Ascension and Tristan da Cunha, South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands and the sovereign base areas of Akrotiri and Dhekelia in the island of Cyprus, but does not extend to Bermuda, which implements sanctions under its own legislative amendments. The new legislation empowers the governor in each territory to freeze assets, issue financial sanctions licenses, and authorize searches and prosecutions of those suspected of breaching sanctions. The governor may bar designated individuals named by the British Foreign Secretary for involvement in trafficking or migrant smuggling, from entering, transiting, or remaining in the islands. Under the new law, a person designated by the UK's Secretary of State for being, or having been, involved in such activities, is a designated person. Such designated persons may be excluded from the territory and may be made subject to financial sanctions, including having their funds or economic resources frozen. The ban from country entry includes narrow exceptions for Turks and Caicos Islanders, and where necessary to meet obligations under the European Convention on Human Rights and the Refugee Convention. Sanctions prohibitions also apply to persons outside the territory but ordinarily resident in Turks and Caicos Islands who hold British nationality, and bodies incorporated or constituted under Turks and Caicos Islands. Turks and Caicos Islands companies and qualifying residents are prohibited from dealing with designated persons anywhere in the world. Under the legislation, the governor becomes the local licensing authority. Any license to permit otherwise prohibited transactions, for example, for basic needs, legal fees or prior contractual obligations, are regulated by the governor, who may issue a financial sanctions license only with the consent of the Secretary of State. The governor is required to publish a list of designated persons and keep the list up to date, except where UK confidentiality rules apply. A person in breach of finance and licensing offence under the legislation faces up to 7 years imprisonment on indictment, or on summary conviction up to 6 months and/or a fine, not exceeding £5,000 or its equivalent in the currency of the territory. Reporting and information offence breaches carry up to 6 months and the same fine limit on summary conviction. Additionally, the legislation authorizes officers, including local police and customs officers and members of His Majesty's forces, as well as persons authorized by the governor, to compel information and documents and receive disclosures from public authorities, for the purpose of enabling or assisting the governor to discharge sanctions functions. The legislation also empowers magistrates or justice of the peace to issue a warrant empowering an authorized officer to enter and search ships, aircraft, vehicles or premises, and to inspect and seize anything suspected to be evidence. It is also an offence to contravene, or circumvent, any of the prohibitions in the law. This is just a brief overview of the new legislation. If you learn anything from this episode, please like, share, and comment. Most of all, thank you for watching. Cheers.